Imagine a unit, a specific, quiet corner of the U.S. Justice Department. Its job: to stare directly into the darkest corners of law enforcement, to investigate when the power meant to protect you instead harms you. Think of times when officers cross the line, allegations of excessive force, brutality, misconduct. This unit, usually small but mighty, is the one that steps in. It's the last resort for those who feel wronged by the badge. Now, imagine that unit. Its ranks decimated. 2/3 of its prosecutors gone. Not reassigned, not on vacation. Gone. And the investigations? The ones meant to bring accountability, to shine a light on abuse? Those too scaled back. Silenced. In a country built on checks and balances, on the promise of justice for all, this isn't just a minor administrative shuffle. This is a seismic shift. A critical shield, quietly, alarmingly collapsing. And most people? Most people have no idea this is just the beginning. Let's rewind for a moment. This isn't about politics. It's about a specific function of government that touches every American. The U.S. Justice Department Special Litigation Section, Civil Rights Division. Sounds bureaucratic, right? But its work is anything but. This is the unit that investigates systemic patterns of police misconduct in departments across the country. They look for practices that violate constitutional rights. They step in when local authorities either can't or won't address serious issues. Think about the headlines. The national conversations about policing. This unit is often at the forefront, negotiating consent decrees, those court-enforceable agreements that mandate reforms within troubled police departments. These aren't punitive measures designed to get police. They're blueprints for better policing, for training, for accountability, for building trust between communities and law enforcement. They're about ensuring justice, not just for the victims, but for the police officers who do serve honorably and want to see their profession held to the highest standards. Consider Minneapolis, a city that became a flashpoint, a symbol of the deepest fissures in our society's relationship with law enforcement. Amidst the raw pain and protests, the Justice Department could have been a critical force for change, for reform. But even as the eyes of the world turned to that city, even as calls for justice echoed, the unit designed to investigate such matters was already hemorrhaging staff. 2/3 of its prosecutors. Think about what that means. It's not just a number on a spreadsheet. It's experience walking out the door. It's institutional memory fading. It's a backlog of potential cases growing longer, gathering dust. It's investigations that once brought hope for change now stalled, or worse, never even beginning. Why does this matter to you? Because when the oversight mechanism weakens, when the watchdogs are stretched thin, the potential for abuse increases. Not just in Minneapolis, but in any town, any city, where the balance of power between citizen and state could tip. It means that the next time you, or someone you love, encounters law enforcement, and something goes wrong, the pathway to justice might be longer, harder, perhaps even non-existent. This isn't about blaming individuals. This isn't about one political party versus another. It's about a fundamental question: who holds power accountable? Who ensures that the vast authority granted to law enforcement is wielded fairly, justly, and within the bounds of the law? When the unit goes quiet, it's not just their cases that are silenced. It's the promise of justice itself. For decades, the idea was simple. We empower institutions to ensure fairness. We build in checks and balances. We create these units, like the Special Litigation Section, as a vital failsafe. But what happens when that failsafe is systematically dismantled? What happens when the institutional memory, the expertise, the will to investigate, simply vanishes? The ripple effect is profound. It's not just about prosecuting wrongdoing after it occurs. It's about deterring it in the first place. When police departments know they are subject to robust federal oversight, they are more likely to prioritize training, accountability, and constitutional policing. When that oversight diminishes, the incentive structure changes. It's human nature. This isn't theory. This is the practical impact of policy choices. A unit that once stood as a bulwark against systemic misconduct is now a shadow of its former self. Its capacity to act, its ability to ensure justice, has been severely compromised. And this particular unit's decline, as alarming as it is, serves as a crucial, tangible example of a much larger, more sweeping change that most Americans are completely unaware of. This isn't an isolated incident. This is a symptom. The story of the Justice Department's watchdog unit, its staff dwindling, its probe shrinking, is a vital piece of a much bigger, more complex puzzle. It's not just about one section of one agency. It's about a radical proposed reclassification of federal workers that could reshape the entire executive branch. This is where the 50,000 federal workers come into play. For decades, the vast majority of federal employees, the ones who process your Social Security, inspect your food, manage national parks, or ensure environmental regulations are followed, have been civil servants. What does civil servant mean? It means they're hired based on merit, not political affiliation. It means they're largely protected from being fired for political reasons. It means they provide institutional knowledge, continuity, and professional expertise regardless of who sits in the White House. They are the backbone of government, the steady hands that keep the lights on, day in and day out. Now, imagine a scenario where up to 50,000 of these career civil servants could be reclassified. Not based on new job duties, but on a different interpretation of their role. This is the concept of Schedule F. It was an executive order issued under a previous administration, and it aimed to move tens of thousands of federal employees from protected civil service roles into a new category. This new category, Schedule F, would strip away their civil service protections. What does that mean practically? It means that these employees, who were once largely insulated from political whims, could now be hired, fired, or transferred much more easily by a president's political appointees. Their loyalty, in theory, would shift from the Constitution and the objective execution of law to the political agenda of the administration in power. Think about that for a moment. This isn't just about high-level policy advisors. The proposed scope of Schedule F included positions deemed to have policy determining, policy making, or policy advocating functions. This could encompass a vast array of roles across every federal agency. From scientists at the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to economists at the Department of Labor, from public health experts at the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, to civil rights attorneys at the Justice Department itself. Why does this matter beyond the abstract idea of civil service? Because these are the people who translate laws passed by Congress and directives from the President into tangible actions that affect your daily life. They write the regulations, they conduct the inspections, they administer the programs. They are the essential machinery of governance. Let's use an analogy. Imagine your car. It has a powerful engine, the President and Congress, that decides where to go and how fast. But it also has a complex system of gears, belts, and specialized parts, the federal bureaucracy, that actually makes the car move smoothly and efficiently. If you suddenly replace half of those essential, highly trained parts with new ones chosen not for their mechanical expertise, but for their loyalty to the driver's preferred brand of gasoline, what happens? The car might still move, but it's going to be a lot bumpier, less efficient, and potentially prone to breaking down. The career civil service is designed to provide stability, to ensure that regardless of political shifts, there's a baseline of expertise and consistent application of the law. They are the institutional memory. They are the ones who can say, "We tried that 20 years ago, and here's why it didn't work," or, "Based on our data, this approach is more effective." They are, in many ways, a nonpartisan check on potential overreach or ill-conceived policies. The executive order creating Schedule F was rescinded by the current administration, but the idea of it, the precedent it set, and the intention behind it remain potent. Should it be reinstated, or a similar mechanism enacted, it would represent an unprecedented power grab. It would allow an administration to essentially install political loyalists into jobs currently held by career professionals, not just at the top, but deep within the bureaucratic layers. This isn't about improving efficiency, it's about control. It's about ensuring that the implementation of policy aligns perfectly with the political agenda of the White House, even if that agenda contradicts scientific consensus, established best practices, or even the original intent of the law. The staffing plunge at the Justice Department unit isn't just a coincidence. It's a real-world demonstration of what happens when you undermine the professional, nonpartisan nature of government work. If that kind of attrition and deprioritization can happen in one critical area, imagine it systematically applied across 50,000 positions. The implications are staggering. Let's broaden our lens. The Justice Department unit is a specific, crucial example, but the potential impact of politicizing 50,000 federal jobs stretches far beyond police accountability. It reaches into every corner of American life, touching things you might not even realize are managed by career civil servants. Think about the air you breathe and the water you drink. Who sets the standards, monitors compliance, and investigates pollution. Scientists and engineers at the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. If those critical positions are filled by individuals whose primary loyalty is to a political agenda that deprioritizes environmental protection, what happens? Regulations could be weakened. Enforcement could slacken. Scientific findings that conflict with political narratives could be suppressed. The long-term consequences for public health and natural resources would be immense, directly affecting the quality of life for millions of Americans. Consider your dinner plate. Who ensures the food you eat is safe? Who inspects meat processing plants, regulates pesticides, and approves new medications? Experts at the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and the Department of Agriculture, USDA. Imagine a scenario where the head of food safety is appointed not for their expertise in public health, but for their alignment with a particular industry's deregulation agenda. The potential for foodborne illness outbreaks, for unsafe products reaching your family, could dramatically increase. This isn't hyperbole. It's the direct result of weakening the scientific, objective foundation of these critical agencies. What about your financial security? The Internal Revenue Service, IRS, the Social Security Administration, SSA, the Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, these agencies manage vast systems that directly impact your income, your retirement, and your health care if you're a veteran. Imagine if the people processing your tax returns, approving your disability claims, or ensuring your veteran benefits are handled efficiently, are suddenly under intense pressure to serve political objectives rather than simply administering the law fairly and consistently. Processing times could lengthen. Appeals could become more difficult. The system, designed to be impartial, could become weaponized. This isn't about whether you like taxes or not. It's about the consistent and fair application of the law. It's about receiving the benefits you've earned. It's about trusting that the systems designed to support you are operating without prejudice. Think about public health, especially after the experiences of recent years. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, the National Institutes of Health, NIH. These institutions are staffed by world-renowned scientists and public health experts. Their job is to follow the science, to protect us from disease, and to guide our response to health crises. If these positions are subject to political litmus tests, if scientific advice can be overridden or silenced by political appointees lacking expertise, then our ability to respond effectively to future pandemics, to develop new treatments, or even to maintain basic public health infrastructure is severely compromised. This directly impacts the health and safety of every single person. And it's not just the big-name agencies. What about the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, which manages vast tracts of public land, your national parks, forests, and recreational areas? What about the Department of Education, which influences school standards and funding? What about FEMA, responsible for disaster relief? In each of these, career professionals bring specialized knowledge, experience, and a commitment to their mission that transcends political cycles. The average American might not interact with these federal workers directly every day, but their work forms the invisible infrastructure of our society. They are the guardians of safety standards, the arbiters of fair process, the custodians of expertise. When you politicize these roles, you fundamentally alter that infrastructure. You introduce instability, uncertainty, and the potential for decisions based on short-term political gain rather than long-term public good. This isn't just about big government. It's about effective government. It's about a system designed to operate with a degree of impartiality and professionalism. When that system is deliberately undermined, when expertise is dismissed in favor of loyalty, it's the middle class, the working families, the everyday citizens who ultimately pay the price. Imagine a world where regulatory agencies are hollowed out, where enforcement is lax, where the experts are ignored. What happens to consumer safety? To financial stability? To environmental health? The protections and services we often take for granted, from clean water to safe medicines to reliable social security checks, could become vulnerable. This isn't a dystopian fantasy. It's the logical extension of a systematic attempt to replace professional civil servants with politically aligned appointees. The real link here is that these seemingly distant bureaucratic changes are not distant at all. They are intimately connected to your health, your wealth, and your safety. They are about the bedrock of trust that allows a modern society to function. At the heart of any stable democracy is the principle of accountability. It's about ensuring that power, wherever it resides, is exercised responsibly and within defined limits. This isn't just about prosecuting wrongdoing. It's about transparency, oversight, and having systems in place that prevent abuse before it happens. For decades, the career civil service has played a critical, often unacknowledged, role in this system of accountability. Think of federal employees as more than just workers. They are custodians of institutional knowledge, procedural memory, and ethical standards. They are often the ones who raise red flags when a political directive seems to skirt the law, ignore established procedure, or compromise public safety. They are the nonpartisan experts who provide context and data that might challenge a politically convenient narrative. They are the adults in the room who have seen multiple administrations come and go, ensuring continuity and stability regardless of who holds the top job. When you introduce a mechanism like Schedule F, which makes tens of thousands of these positions at will political appointments, you fundamentally alter this dynamic. You create an environment where loyalty to the administration, rather than loyalty to the mission of the agency or the objective application of the law, becomes paramount. Imagine a scientist at the EPA whose research contradicts a politically preferred stance on climate change. Under the traditional civil service, that scientist has protections. They can share their findings, testify before Congress, and often face less fear of reprisal. Under Schedule F, that scientist could be easily fired. Their expertise could be silenced. This isn't a hypothetical fear. It's a direct consequence of stripping away civil service protections. What happens to oversight? Congressional committees rely heavily on the expertise of career federal employees to understand complex issues, draft legislation, and conduct investigations. If these sources of objective information are replaced by politically appointed individuals whose primary role is to promote an administration's agenda, then Congress's ability to perform its oversight function, to truly scrutinize the executive branch, is severely diminished. It becomes harder to get unbiased information, harder to uncover potential abuses, harder to ensure that laws are being implemented as intended. This isn't about obstructing a president's agenda. Every president has the right to enact their policies, but they are meant to do so within a framework of law, accountability, and professional governance. The civil service is designed to be the how, the objective implementers of the what. When the how becomes politicized, the entire system of checks and balances begins to unravel. Consider the historical context. The modern civil service was largely established after the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act of 1883, a reaction to rampant political patronage and corruption. Before that, government jobs were often handed out as spoils to political allies. This led to inefficiency, incompetence, and corruption. The reforms aimed to create a professional, merit-based civil service, insulated from partisan politics, to ensure competent and fair governance. Schedule F, or similar proposals, represent a dramatic rollback of these reforms, a return to an era where government jobs could be treated as political favors. The danger isn't just about specific policies. It's about the erosion of trust in government itself. If citizens perceive that federal agencies are no longer operating impartially, but are instead tools of a political party, then faith in institutions like the FDA, the IRS, or the CDC will plummet. This can lead to increased polarization, reduced compliance with regulations, and a general sense that the system is rigged. This affects everyone, regardless of political affiliation, because it undermines the very foundations of a functioning society. The politicization of expertise also impacts our standing on the world stage. When our scientific agencies are seen as politically compromised, when our regulatory bodies are viewed as lacking independence, our ability to lead on global issues, from climate change to public health, is diminished. Other nations rely on our scientific rigor and the integrity of our institutions. In essence, this proposed shift represents a fundamental reshaping of the American administrative state. It would consolidate immense power in the executive branch, potentially at the expense of legislative oversight, judicial review, and, crucially, the public interest. It would change not just who makes decisions, but how those decisions are made, and on what basis. It would transform career professionals, whose allegiance has historically been to their mission and the public, into potential political agents, susceptible to pressure and dismissal. The dwindling Justice Department unit is not an anomaly. It is a chilling preview. It demonstrates how easily vital functions can be undermined when the professional, nonpartisan nature of federal service is challenged. The larger implications of a widespread Schedule F-like system are profound. A government less accountable, less expert, and ultimately, less able to serve the complex needs of its citizens fairly and effectively. This isn't just about policy. It's about power, transparency, and the future of American governance. We've peeled back the layers. We started with a specific, alarming example, a Justice Department unit designed to ensure police accountability, silently gutted. We then connected that to a much larger, sweeping proposal to reclassify up to 50,000 federal workers, stripping them of civil service protections. We explored how this could reach into every corner of government, from your food safety to your financial well-being. And we discussed the profound implications for accountability and the stability of our democratic institutions. This isn't about taking a side. It's about understanding the fundamental mechanics of governance. It's about recognizing that the vast, complex machine of the federal government, which impacts every single aspect of your life, relies on a degree of professionalism and impartiality to function effectively and fairly. The efforts to centralize control, to replace merit with loyalty in tens of thousands of federal positions, represent a profound gamble. A gamble with your safety, your well-being, and the long-term health of our democracy. You might hear arguments that these changes are about efficiency, about making government more responsive to the will of the people, or about removing obstacles to a president's agenda. But the history of civil service reform tells a different story. It tells us that merit, expertise, and insulation from partisan politics are not obstacles, they are safeguards. They are the essential ingredients for a government that serves all its citizens, not just a fleeting political faction. The critical takeaway is this: what happens within the Justice Department's police misconduct unit is not an isolated incident. It is a bellwether. It is a clear, tangible demonstration of what happens when the professional, nonpartisan expertise within government is deliberately undermined. And if this trend, this proposed systematic reclassification of federal workers, moves forward, its effects will be felt not in abstract policy debates, but in the very fabric of your daily life. This is a story about power. About who wields it, how they wield it, and what happens when the traditional structures designed to temper that power are systematically dismantled. Most people do have no idea what's about to happen. But now you do. And understanding it is the first step toward safeguarding the foundations of your future. Understanding how executive power can be consolidated and expanded isn't just about recognizing a single event. It's about seeing the patterns that shape our nation's destiny. If you're now wondering, what are the other levers of power a president can pull, and how have they been used historically to reshape government? Then you absolutely need to subscribe us.